Hi guys, I'm trying to get this working. Good thing I have my thing on. Just prepping. Hi everybody. So, first let me make sure I'm on the right. Tracy, am I on the right page? Sarah Jane, am I on the right page? My Caroline Paget business page? I was preparing and meditating and then realized what time it was. Oh, hi love, thank you. Yes. Great, so I am on the right page. That's fabulous. So loves, welcome and thank you for spending your Wednesday evening with me. I'm really excited about this topic of ceremony and ritual, and there's so much to speak about with it that we are going to be able to cover as much as possible, and then it's such a juicy topic I might come back to it as well and do another part to it. So everyone just settle in. And we're just going to take a couple breaths to ground first. So let's close the eyes and tune into the breath. And summoning yourself to yourself with the breath, letting yourself arrive right here, right now. Feeling your body on the ground or in the chair, connected to the earth, your spine nice and straight, your crown opening to your divine, your knowing, and then resting on the heart. Beautiful. So, loves, you can slowly open your eyes and welcome. So, ceremony and ritual, it's such a juicy topic, as well as an important act that we can do in our lives. And more and more people are waking up to the importance of engaging in these two activities to bring the sacred to the mundane, or more, the mundane is already sacred, but we get to turn our perspective. We get to shift our lens, right? Because life just is, and we bring our intention, and bring our perspective to it, and that's what goes from like your ho-hum to this juicy, magical, sacred adventure, right? But the thing doesn't change, right? So it goes back to that saying, we see things as we are, not as they are, or what we perceive, we receive. Hi, everybody. Everyone's saying hello. So part of why I love ceremony and ritual, it helps, it's like splashing water on my face of like, okay, let's get clear here, right? So we can brush, because we get all in the habit, like we're brushing our teeth. What if we like lit a candle and like tuned into the fact that we have toothbrushes, and the fact that we can brush our teeth, and that, by the time we're 40, we're not like all toothless. It's pretty fucking amazing, really, if you think about like the history of humanity, and the fact that like we have our teeth. Not only do we have our teeth, but we can get like fake teeth put in, and so we can still eat when we're older if we lost our teeth, right? But we don't think about these mundane actions as sacred acts, as blessings. And so when you move into, sorry, I'm really distracted by this real quick. This is not working. We move into the perspective that ceremony and ritual holds for us. So we're making the mundane sacred. We're bringing our intention and our awareness to light up. We're tuning into the vibration of consciousness and what's behind it. So the difference between ceremony and ritual, I get asked this a lot. So ritual is an act, right? So the ritual of, like, I love my coffee ritual in the morning. And it's usually like outside. We live on top of a mountain. It's gorgeous, and it's with all the pets, and it's just our time to just breathe, connect with each other. You know, what's your day going to be like? This and that. That's like our coffee ritual in the morning. And I love our coffee ritual in the morning. You know, it can be doing your yoga practice in the morning. That is a ritual. It can be your morning pages, writing in the morning, like your morning ritual, light your candle, do the morning. That's borderline ceremony. But a ceremony is a state of transformation. And so within a ceremony, there's an arc to it. So there in a ceremony, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. So when you're engaging in ceremony, whether you're going to a ceremony or you are planning the ceremony, there is intention to these different phases of the arc of the ceremony. And so there might be multiple rituals within each arc, and it depends on how long the ceremony is. So within ritual, you're engaging in one act, and it can be a beautiful ritual of lighting the candle on the ancestor altar, right? So that's like tuning in and giving thanks for your ancestors. Beautiful ritual. It's not, though, an arc of something. You're not creating and preparing for something to transform your consciousness. And that's a big difference with ceremony. So ceremony is, most of the time, you can have spontaneous ceremonies, but most of the time it is prepared. Because truly the magic of ceremony is in the unseen realms, and it's in the pre-ceremonial work, in your relationship to spirit. So we've all been, right, to, I'm sure, a ceremony where we go and all the things are, like the candles are lit, the cards are pulled, or, we go into, it could be going into the church, like the rituals are enacted. Like everyone knows their role, everyone knows what they're doing, and there's a ceremony happening. But you're not moved. You leave and you're like, I did the things, but I don't feel different. I don't feel a consciousness shift. I don't feel that there was transformation, right? So we can perform ceremony. I can give like, okay, go and do this ceremony, and you get the sage and you get the oracle cards and you light the things and you write the people and this and that. But if you're just going through the list of what the ceremony, like Sarah and I, my partner, when we hold ceremonies, we call it the playlist. Like, what's our playlist? When I'm looking down, like, okay, what's the playlist? But if that's that's what we're doing and we're just checking off the list, you might have like, oh, okay, that was good to connect with people. Oh, I got the oracle card and I had like this aha moment. But there is not an energy driving the ceremony. There is not a consciousness. There's not spirit in dialogue holding the ceremony. And that really is what makes a profound ceremony, is the prep work beforehand. So whether this is for yourself or for you're holding it for others, I'm going to speak first of doing a ceremony in your own life for your personal development, and then I'll go into holding space for others. So, and this can be, for your own, I'll give myself an example. So today was my dad's birthday, and this is his first birthday not on the planet. He passed away the end of February, and I was going to go to his favorite spot in the mountains, I got the flowers. He loves key lime pie, got the key lime pie, going to do the thing. I'm prepping, right? I'm getting the pictures. I know I'm like very aware that his birthday is coming up. I'm doing the work. I'm in meditation, calling on him. There's something that's moving me. And then I have like my playlist of what I think I'm going to do. But because I'm in relationship with the spirit, I'm in relationship with not only the spirit of him, but I'm in relationship with my helping spirits, my guides. I'm in relationship with the guides of the place that I'm engaged in. So you don't go to just like a river and like throw a bunch of roses in the river for this ritual. That's their home. That's like going into like just like going into someone's home and like bleh, throwing up in their house, or or throwing roses. But that'd be kind of weird, right? Like you're like doing your thing and someone just like bursts into your house and like throws a bunch of roses and then leaves, and you're kind of like, what the hell just happened? So to engage in ceremony on a level of true transformation, the magic of it is in the pre-work. It's in the preparation. It's in the purification. So ceremony is a communication. It's a communication between you and yourself, your soul. It's between you and your intention. It's between you and spirit. And what is the desired outcome? So ceremony usually has a desired outcome. Now, it doesn't mean that you know that outcome because you haven't gone through the transformation to get there, but you have an intention, right? So when Sarah and I hold our tobacco ceremonies, they are governed a lot by the seasons, but we have an intention. So solstice, let's give winter solstice. It's a time of going inward. What's our intention for letting the alchemy happen in the dark month? So all of the songs, everything we're doing is going back to that intention of planting that seed to let it grow and alchemize during the winter months. Ceremony is like your intention could be a gratitude despacho ceremony. So everything that you're doing, setting up, is around honoring the gratitude that you have in your life. So house ceremonies, house blessing ceremonies, everything that I'm doing, from the crystals I bring to the prep work, is around that intention of a house blessing. Right, so we all can, I think, get the feel that the ceremonies have your intention. That's a really important part, is to know, like, what are you honoring? What are you wanting to transform? It can be a cord cutting ceremony or an unenmeshing ceremony when you have been enmeshed in someone's energy field, whether it's your ex-partner, your current partner, a business partner, where you both are like swimming in mud and you're like, I cannot see clearly here. Okay, what do we need to do? Okay, let's take a step back. And you can do rituals to help clear that, and you can also engage in a ceremony, a full it's like a full sentence, right? So you have a beginning, you have a middle, and you have an end. Where rituals, you don't really have to have that arc, and you don't have to have all those parts. Does that make sense? Difference between ritual and ceremony? Just gonna pause. Okay, so I think that's clear. Okay, so purification of, what is the purification process? That can be abstaining from things. So when we are doing certain ceremonies, we do not eat certain foods. We don't engage in certain activities. I know I definitely do not want to be watching my Marvel comic movies, though I love them. I will not be watching those. There's things that you want to abstain from and then clear. It might be take a ritual bath for 7 days leading up to this birthday ceremony, right? So you listen to spirit, you listen to your guidance, and you create your purification. You don't wait till Saturday, the day of the ceremony, and that day, all of a sudden be in purification mode. Right? You really tend to the purification process, and it will help the transformation happen with much more grace and also much more sustainability, and it will stick in a deeper way. And so it's purification, but it's also opening up the lines of communication to yourself, your soul, your guides. So again, and this is, for people who hold ceremonies, or even if it's just you and a couple friends, you don't want to wait to the day of ceremony or to that moment of ceremony and then be like, hey guides, what do you think about this? You want to be in relationship. You want to open up the channels pre-ceremony. When I'm holding ceremony for a group of people, I'm in prayer every single day for every single person who's showing up. I'm talking to my guides, I'm talking to their guides. May it be for the highest good and their deepest healing and their deepest transformation, whatever the intention is of the ceremony. You're doing the work, you're opening up communication lines. Oh, you're getting a hit that person might need some extra support. Okay, I'm going to reach out to them. Hey, how's everything going? Oh, funny that you called. I was about to call you and say, you know what, I'm not coming. Right? So it's those synchronicities because we're listening. So we want to, sink into that process of deep listening. And this includes for yourself, right? So if I'm doing the ceremony for my birthday and I'm leading up to it, I'm going to receive different information each day if I'm doing my work of listening. Oh, okay, that wants to be shift some from what I thought. The playlist is shifting. Oh, okay, this needs to happen. Oh, I need to, clear something with a friend of mine before I go into this next decade. That kind of thing. So it's also about opening up lines of communication. Does every ceremony require purification? Well, if you think about it, most ceremony, I'm going to say yes. And it doesn't have to be, again, like as long as a process as I'm speaking of, it can be smudging, right? So taking the sage or the cedar, smudging, Palo Santo. Purification is when you step into ceremony and you leave that part of self behind. So I'll get into that in a second, but that's a great question. Does every ceremony require purification? I would say yes, and again, it can be as intense as, a month leading up to a certain ceremony. You don't eat any animal protein and salt. Like in the Peruvian traditions, when you're going into like deep plant ceremonies, and that's what mostly, if you're doing plant ceremonies or taking internal plant medicine, there's an internal don't eat the foods process that isn't necessary for when you're not ingesting anything. But does need to be some sort of purification, because what you're doing in ceremony, you're calling forth a death. You're calling forth a death because you're also calling for a birth. And in order to have a birth, you have to have a death. And so that's another, like, getting comfortable with the deathing process. And that means the deathing of your ego, right? So it's, if you're really coming, it's like, you know what, I want to do a gratitude. So we did a gratitude despacho ceremony because we bought this beautiful home and this beautiful land, and we were so grateful, and the purification of that process is, am I willing to die to my old self and really step into the person that can hold all of this, can actually receive the gifts of the divine? So that's just part of the purification process, and then also getting clear with what is dying, so what is being born. So if it's, you want to do a ceremony, let's see, a ceremony to bless a space. So it's the purification. If you're inviting people over to bless your space, you do not have to send out an email saying, please don't eat salt for a week and, take a ritual shower for 7 days in a row. You don't have to do that. When they come through the threshold, perhaps though, have part of the purification is flowers, a line of flowers they step over, and you have smudge or you have sage, something, and they're coming in, they're leaving their the ordinary consciousness at the door. So, and that is part of it. So we step into ceremonial space to transform our consciousness. We're going from ordinary consciousness to non-ordinary consciousness. We're opening up ourselves for transformation. And so part of the ceremonial process, so that's the purification part. You step over that threshold, you're engaged then into like the meat of the ceremony, so to speak. And that's where you get to create really specific rituals for whatever your intention is for that transformation. So that could be writing, that could be picking cards, that can be dancing, right? You're going through a transformation with the songs, with the movement. You're having some sort of transformational process. So by the time you get to the end of the process, there's been a shift in not only your consciousness, but hopefully your cellular structure as well. Which, engaging in gratitude despachos, engaging the heart, being in 2 hours of just repeating and giving thanks and in your gratitude, that for sure will change your DNA structure and change your brainwaves. So there is a way so whatever you have in the meat, so to speak, the middle part of the sentence is your specific rituals for transformation. And that is going to be specific for whatever ceremony you're wanting to do for yourself or for others. Then you have the closing, right? You don't want to have all this transformation and then it not be held, to not have a safe container. We'll go into safety. Oh gosh, this goes by so fast. Oh, you know what? I didn't say there was a time. Oh, that's right. I put on the other things that, I can't do these in half hours a lot of times. So we'll just see how long it takes. And if you have to pop off, you have to pop off. So the place of closing. So there's usually like, okay, there's the transformation. Then come bring yourself back to your body, ground. How do you feel different? That's a good question. Do you feel different? You then have usually another ritual, another act to signify the closing, to hold the space, right? So transformation Shakti. It can be wild, it can be quiet. It is a force of nature. So there's a swirl that happens with the transformation, right? There's an energy of movement. And then when we come back to the closing, then we go into that still point. We go into the grounding. So we want to ground. We want to give gratitudes and thanks for the helpers in the unseen realms who just hold space for you. You want to have a closing. You want to honor the transformation. It might be naming, going back to like what the intention, stating the intention again of the ceremony. Then claiming where you're at now. Right? So for example, of the grief ritual, which was within the celebration of my dad's birthday ceremony, it's, doing the grief ritual, doing this other ritual, letting it move through my body, come back. And then, the closing was, is eating key lime pie, his favorite dessert. For those just jumping on and talking about, it's my dad's birthday today and he recently passed. So I did a birthday celebration ceremony / grief ritual honoring. So, it's grounding, it's coming back, it's being present with eating that key lime pie. It's sharing it with him. Eat the key lime pie, give thanks, ground, come back. And definitely transformation during that process. Getting back into the car, how does my heart feel? How does my body feel? Where I'm at in engagement with the not only myself, my guides, but with my dad. So there is a definite closing you want to pay attention to for yourself as when you're holding space forever. Don't have some people like still in the Shakti part of the ceremony and then be like, awesome transformation, see you later. That would be very destabilizing. So the importance of the third part of the ceremony, the grounding, the closing, the gratitude, is stabilization. And that includes for yourself. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not emotions up or there's not a shift in consciousness where it's like, wow, this feels different. I'm not saying that it's going to feel comfortable. There's a huge difference between feeling comfortable and feeling stabilized. You can feel stabilized and feel all sorts of uncomfortable. All sorts of like, whoa, this is new. Whoa, there's tears, there's, still emotion and feeling running, but there's a stabilization. Does that make sense? So I'll like that. I'm just going to make sure checking in. So, ceremonies have been used of course, like throughout history, every single culture, for rites of passage, for all rites of passage, from birth, death, anywhere in between, birthdays, celebrations, girls becoming women, getting their cycle, boys becoming men, just like there is endless ritual and ceremony that we can engage in. And how we can really rebirth these practices is by starting with ourselves, and how, like, just thinking of, oh, what's something that's going on in my life that I'm just keep looping in, whether it's emotionally, whether it's mentally, what's that thing that's just like, it keeps coming back. And then asking yourself, how can I create a ceremony to help that process along? Because ceremony is also honoring the invisible and making it visible. And the way that we can engage and also engage in our healing and be proactive in our evolution and transformation of consciousness is through these acts of ceremony and ritual, right? So there's a native saying that we are as sick as our secrets. And that does not mean that we're like lying and creating all these secrets from everyone, but it's the secrets from ourselves. And very often, unless we are creating sacred space and carving out time, especially in our day and age and culture and technology and all the stimulus, we do not create the space for the unconscious to become conscious. And that takes time sometimes. And that is the beauty of ceremony. And it could be a ceremony of, I want to look at my shadow. That's pretty vague, right? But that intention is clear. And you can set up the space to, be willing to face your shadow, face the dark, create shadow dances, journal exercises. There are so many things you can get creative with to have the middle part of your ceremony engage to bring the unconscious conscious. And then we have a closing. And that is truly the gift we can give ourselves and our communities by helping to be in partnership with the divine, our soul, the spirit helping guides in, helping our evolution along. We don't have to stay swimming in things. We don't have to be like, oh, shoots, I don't go to my therapist for 2 weeks. What am I going to do? It's like we can create that space for ourselves to allow the dance of the invisible to take form. And that sometimes just takes time, right? So, how many times do we go on a retreat and it's like, yes, the content of the retreat was transformative, but it's also that we were just on retreat and we turned off our phones and we didn't have to walk the dog, feed everybody, and we were just out of our lives. And so we had space for those aha moments. We had space to be to get perspective. So that's another thing. Ceremony helps us get perspective, right? So we can't change the state of consciousness or change the same thing with the state of consciousness that created the problem. I'm totally botching Albert Einstein's quote, but I think you'll know what I mean. So we have to change our state of consciousness, change our reference points to be able to have the energy move, have our consciousness shift. And ceremony is a fantastic, fabulous, been used by every tradition for thousands of years, a way to do that. So I'm going to pause, see how all that lands. See if there's any questions popping up. I'm going to go into safety of ceremony in just a second, just seeing how that. So for those just popping on, I never know how these lives work, if you can just start from the beginning, if you start right now, but I went over, so the 3 aspects of ceremony is there's a beginning, which includes intention, sacred space setting, calling in your peeps, gratitude. There's the middle part of the ceremony, which is the part of the transformation where you have rituals or things you're engaging with. It could be meditations, it could be journal writing. that's facilitating or inviting in the transformation along with your guides and your helping spirits, and then you have the closing. So there's an arc happening, and within that there's the pre-ceremonial preparation, which is like meditating on, what do I want to create ceremony with, and then doing the work, doing the purification process, doing the opening up the channels of relationship to you and your guides and you and your helping spirits, and whatever the intention is of the ceremony, and also creating safety. So going into the safety part of ceremony, and this can be a heated topic, especially when it comes to plant medicine ceremonies. But this absolutely applies to your own personal ceremonies at home. For example, I'll use myself again today. I don't go to a piece of land and just start opening up the channels to my own guides, my own spirit, to my Father, and just trusting that it's all going to be good. There's prep work. There is connecting to the land, making offerings to the land, connecting to the river that I was at. There's engaging. I have my helpers. Know who your protectors are in the unseen realms. Part of setting up sacred space is setting up a safe space. Now, part of the controversial is, before I go deeper, is that some people, and people that I love and respect, they feel like if they can just hold the love and hold the light, that is enough protection. And that is totally okay. That is not my experience, and that is not my opinion. So I will say, this is my opinion, and I'm not saying it's, well, I guess I am saying that I would suggest doing this, but I am going to put that out there, that there is definitely some conflict in the ceremonial community sometimes of, do you need protections? If you're calling in protections, are you coming from a fear-based place? What if we just all have the love and the light? Isn't that enough? There's those questions, and people are in different camps, and I kind of go in between the camps. There's some die-hard, very traditional, that is absolutely not enough, and you need to do X, Y, and Z, and do this, and this, and there's like a million different protocols. And then there's the hardcore people in this camp that don't call in any protection at all. They think that that's actually bringing in or calling forth fearful energies, and that's the diehard camp. And I'm somewhere goes in between. And it is going to depend on the type of ceremony, the type of, if I'm doing it for myself, or if I'm doing it with, or if I'm holding space for others. And it also is going to depend whether I'm going into an altered state of consciousness, which we all go through in ceremonies, whether it's through dancing or sound or breath work or writing and creating that spaciousness. Your brain changes. Or it's ingesting plant spirit medicine. So, that all being said, my experience is it's that saying, trust Allah and tie up your camel. So I am going to trust in the light, and I'm going to trust in the love, and I'm going to trust in my own consciousness, and I am going to tie up my camel. I'm going to tie up my camel. I am going to call in my protecting spirits, and that goes back to know thyself. Who are your helping guides? Do you feel comfortable calling in the angels? Do you engage with your guides in that way? Do you want to call in your well ancestors? I'm particularly saying well, not just call in ancestors, but well ancestors. There is a way that there is a lot going on in the unseen realms, and it's talked about in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, many different scripts, the Gnostic scriptures of the different beings in all the different realms. And my experience is there are, it's not just a benevolent universe. I think clearly we all know that, considering what also occurs on the planet. and outside the planet. And I don't also believe that that all beings are rooting for your awakening and rooting for your transformation. So when you step into sacred space, when you open up the channels for transformation, when you open up the channels for light, my experience is that there's also going to be forces, and it can be minor, it can be big, that are going to be paying attention, that if you don't have your protective space up, that, you know, some things could go a little bit awry. And that can be anything from super minor to not minor at all. So I have a dear friend and who was a mentor of mine for years, and you know, quite a few years ago when I was starting to hold more ceremonies, tobacco ceremonies, different things, and other types of ceremonies that do require a lot more awareness, a lot more skill. You know, I asked him, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about having this ceremony, and what do you think? You know, it's like, I've been on this path for a long time, and I've been like sitting with him in different ceremonies, and he just looked at me, and he looked me dead in the eye, and he asked me, he's just like, are you prepared to look the devil in the eye for 8 hours and not budge? And at that moment, I was like, oh, nope, I'm not. And I knew I wasn't ready to hold that level of ceremony. Now, none of this is to scare you or to see like, oh, I can't do my ceremonies. But this is for, I get also a lot of questions and a lot of sorry, I'll answer you, Star, in a second. I just want to keep with this. Is, you know, there's a lot of ceremonies that go on in our culture right now, and from indigenous practices, and it's a little bit rampant, especially in different areas. Wherever you're at, it might not be prevalent, but in where I sit in Nashville and different places I lived in California, it's pretty prevalent to have different types of ceremonies multiple times a week, and you know, and not the most skilled people holding those spaces. And that is a judgment. And I'm going to say that right there. I'm not saying I'm perfect. And, you know, being an energy healer for close to, well, over 15 years and being a skilled seer, you know, I can see the effects that being in ceremonial space, when it has to do with plant medicine, what the effects can have on that if it's not a protected space. So I'll just say that. Sarah asked, just to be clear, the protection topic applies to our own individual ceremonies, not just ceremonies for others, right? Yes. So in your protective, in your own ceremonies, it can be as elaborate or as simple as calling forth your well ancestors for protection, calling in your guides and your teachers. So before any of the meditations I do in the morning or any calls that I'm on, so even this one, you know, before I sit and meditate, you know, I'm setting the space before I get on. So you don't hear me say, I'm calling in Archangel Michael, I'm calling in, you know, Melchizedek, I'm calling in my peeps, and I'm setting the space because I'm doing that pre-hand. And with myself today, with the ceremony with my dad, I called in sacred space. Sacred space to me is safe space. So it's just habit now, and it's a good thing to get in habit. When you set sacred space, whether that's the smudging for your own self, you call in, you know, you call in your protectors. Now, again, this is mine opinion and experience, and the people that I've mentored experience and opinion, and other people might not feel this. They might feel that you can just stay in your heart and it's all good. And I have seen it be all good. So I am by no means trying to scare people or, you know, don't do ritual, this and that. Again, this topic is pretty heated when it comes to plant medicines, whether it's tobacco or other kinds. So it's a little bit different when you are not ingesting in that way. However, there's powerful energies and powerful transformation that happens with your ceremonies, and using breath work, using dancing, using all these different other tools. So don't think like, oh, my ceremonies aren't going to be that powerful, so I don't need to call in the protection. That's not what I'm trying to say at all here. It's just when you're working as a ceremonialist, and this is for you know, you've either been holding ceremonies or you want to hold ceremonies, or you've been, just for you to be aware, if you go to ceremonies, you know, check out, like, what's the person doing? You know, ask them. Empower yourself, you know, and don't be afraid ever to walk out of a ceremony. And I am so just absolutely like clear about that. If you're in a ceremony, whether it's with plant medicine or not plant medicine, and you're feeling like, you know what, this doesn't feel right, like something's off with the facilitators, or this isn't, or it's just, you know, and it's me or whatever, don't be afraid to leave. Just absolutely don't be afraid to leave. And that being said, there's always, again, everything that we're talking about goes back to know thyself. Are you sitting there in ceremony and you're feeling nervous and nauseous, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, these people probably don't know what they're doing, I'm going to leave? Now, is that a true statement? Know thyself, like, okay, or maybe I'm about to have like a really big death process, so I can step into the rebirth of what I am calling forth in my life. You know, like that definitely could be happening. Or is it really like, you know what, the energy feels really off and I'm going to trust my intuition. So again, know thyself. We have to know, like, whoa, my ego and my emotions and my little girl is freaking out because there's about to be a big change happen. I guess I'm just going to like hold on. Now, there's a difference between my intuition, I'm deeply centered, I'm in my body, and I just feel it in my stomach, and my guides, myself, my soul is like, no. That's when you need to be like, you know what? I realize this isn't the right space for me. And again, like, we're not judging people, we're not making them wrong, but you're empowering yourself, because you absolutely do not need to give your power away to any ceremonialist, any teacher. Nope. So I might be getting a little bit on the soapbox, but that's, I feel like, my job at the moment. How do we go about understanding who our protectors are? I'm thinking this should come as part of the stillness during preparation, but could you please talk about this a little bit? Yes. Understanding who your protectors are is part of having, like, what is your internal practice? You know, it's part of the stillness. It's getting curious. And if it's like, I don't know who my protectors are, that's awesome. It's like, ooh, I get to meet new friends, right? So you get to see, like, you know what, I don't know my protectors. And it can be your also teachers, right? So I have lived in multiple ashrams. I have multiple, here's Amaji is one of my teachers. She's the hugging saint from India. Aman Bhagavan here. I mean, I actually, if you saw behind the camera, I have my protectors. I have the pictures of the avatars that are inspiration to me and my teachers, and they're holding space with me. So it doesn't just have to be in the unseen realm. You know, you can have a picture of your mentor that you work with in this realm. So that's, if I hope that explains it. And you can also go into meditation and ask to meet a protector. You can journey with it. So, because a lot of the ceremony and ritual we're talking about is from the shamanic perspective. So you can take a shamanic journey and meet your protectors. Where's the protector? This guy. This is an amazing protector. Amazing light protector holder. Just is like, you know, so stones, you know, you program a stone that, so in my healing room, when I was seeing people in person, I had a stone that's specific for taking the hucha, the dense energy, anything that's popping off people, whether it's entities, aspects of their own self that is being let go of. You know, I don't want that swirling all around my treatment room. I cleared my treatment room every single time, but there was a stone that's like, that's where the energy goes. You program it. This is getting a little bit like, so if this is like for folks like, well, this is getting a little much, just take what you want, and then come back to it. So this is going, I'm just checking my things. So when you call in sacred space, it's knowing your energetic hygiene. It's knowing your connection to the earth. Are you grounded? That is the first thing to do in any ceremony, whether it's with yourself or with others. Are you grounded? And again, like, I'm not perfect. We don't all do this perfect. There's definitely times I'm like, whoa, did I even eat? Oh no, I just had my green juices and coffee. I don't think that is really going to cut it. So I need to eat. I need to ground. I need to go sit by the tree. Check back in. Where am I? What's going on? And this does not include just for me holding space for others. This is myself included. Okay, what's my intention? What's the purpose of this sacred time? Right? Pause, ground, reflect, come back to center. So, if you are holding ceremonies and holding space already, and there may or may not be triggers, just, again, we get to get honest with ourselves, and we get to be humble, and we get to have our practice. That is, to me, and not everyone feels this way. Again, this is me. I do believe that a personal practice is absolute foundational if you're going to be holding space for others. Yeah, we'll just leave that at that. So my personal opinion and experience is, as you grow as a ceremonialist, if that's what you partake in, and that's what you do, is that the importance of having mentors. I have seen so many talented, beautiful healers, teachers, spiritual guides go through the years and stop working on themselves, stop doing the inner work, and they stop having mentors, and my personal, and I've talked to one of my own mentors. She's an elder in her mid-70s, an Indigenous woman out in California, and I usually have two mentors going. It's just who I am. It's how I do. And she has a mentor, and she is the grandmothers. People seek her counsel from all over the world, and she makes sure to have her mentor. My other mentor friend and colleague is in his mid-50s. He has his mentor. What I have seen is we need those reflections. That was a promise I've made to myself. If I'm going to be holding groups or courses, whether it's on shamanic priestess or, one-day ceremonies, a couple-day workshops, that my absolute promise is that I will always have that checkpoint. Someone who's further along down the path than I am. Someone I can go to like, whoa, this went a little wonky. What do you help me see? Or inside, like, this is what I'm going through, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and it's different. Having a mentor when you're stepping into the shamanic ceremonialist path is different than having a therapist. And I am not saying, I am a big fan of therapy, particularly body-centered therapy. So this isn't about, and yeah, it's not about that. But if you're stepping into the role of a ceremonialist, and this is with working with others particularly, and you really want to know the art of this, have a mentor. So that's just my own part of, I was writing the list of, what do I feel is, creating safe space, and where have I seen it go wrong, and where I've seen some things go wonky for people, and it's truly about knowing your consciousness, because your consciousness holds the space. So again, I'm speaking of ceremonialists holding space for others. And that can be a birthday party. That can be a full-on 8-hour ceremony. Your consciousness is holding the space. So it is up to you to manage, to know your consciousness. And not saying that, at all, none of us are perfect. My mentor is like, oh, that happened. That wasn't, they were holding space or doing ceremony for leaving it in Glastonbury for 200,000 people. And there was these things that she just laughed. This is not her first rodeo, but no one's perfect. But we can definitely show up with our pure heart, and we can show up with our pure intention, and also do our due diligence. Yeah, so I'm going to pause there and see what questions you have. Again, there's only so much, I wanted to just give a introductory guidelines, especially if you've been holding space or you're excited to hold space. And the safety part is not to scare anyone, but just to be aware. If you have a studio, if you have a yoga studio and you're wanting to hold more ceremonies and, inviting people in, and you have the oracle cards and the candles and stuff, that is so beautiful. Like, the world needs sacred time, and we get to just refine how we show up to it. So you might not change anything that you do on the external, but how does your consciousness show up to hold the space? Because people, and you've all felt it, right? When you walk into a place and like, you can feel the energetics have been set. The transformation is already happening based on the vibrational resonance that the person has set the space. And it's never just the person, it's their helping spirits, it's their helping guides, it's their prep work. But that feeling when you walk into a space and your body just either relaxes or like wakes up. It's like you can feel the shift of the energy. And, and again, we're not all perfect. There's definitely ceremonies. I've been doing leading ceremonies and holding ceremonies for a very long time. So, there's definitely been ceremonies where I just showed up and I was I did some prep work and I did my best, but I was all chaotic show up, and it took a while, and it's okay, let's do an extra long grounding because I needed to ground. And it's you get the bowls out or you get this, and it takes a minute to get the energy going. So I'm not saying that you have to, this is not about perfection, but it's about awareness. So I hope this was insightful and that you learned some new things about ceremony and ritual for yourself. I know we ended on the perspective of holding space for others, but all this applies to your own self and you can get excited and get curious, ooh, I love to do ceremony with myself, at home, and I love to do this. How can I just raise the bar? And raise the bar not just for your, raising the bar for yourself, but you're raising the bar for your transformation, which is exciting, and it really truly helps things like that thing, so if there was homework, soul work, homework is pick something that you've been, struggling with. Maybe you feel burnt out. Maybe you feel like you've been working so hard and getting the downloads, but it's just you're flatlined. Right? So what can you do? What kind of sacred space can you do? You can create a ritual bath. What's the part before that? Maybe journal. Take the bath. Get out of the bath, dance, completion. That's a ceremony right there. It does not have to be long. It does not have to be super layered. And sometimes actually the simplest ceremonies are the most profound. We can get really fancy, and sometimes getting all fancy, the energy can sometimes get lost. So especially for yourself, and if you're starting out with ritual and ceremony, simple is best. Start with breath. I'm going to dance. I'm going to drum. Going to do this thing. Come to completion. Thank you. I'm done. Right? So again, your intention is really going to open up the doorway and guide. In creating sacred space, I start with sage, and then closing, I end with Palo Santo incarnation. Is this correct? That's up to you and your guides. In my understanding, that I've never heard that one opens the space and one closes, especially they're used in completely different traditions and in completely different continents. So I don't think there's a traditional open with sage and with Palo Santo, because they wouldn't have been in the same space anyway. So it's really if you did learn that, then it was, someone else's preference, but that's not going to be a traditional, this is how you do it. Oh, speaking of that, there is definitely traditional ceremonies, and this is how you do it. Again, I'm going to be in the middle because I've mentored and studied with very traditional people for years and years, and sat with them and sat with them and sat with them. And then I have have done the complete opposite, where everything is just the download from the intuition and so so it's kind of like you have the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and I'm somewhere and I go both. I think that there is gifts from the traditional, and I think that there's definitely gifts in, going in and opening up and asking your guides what to do. So that was your guides sharing this. Awesome. Well, then I would say go for it. There's clearly a reason. Oh, but that's another thing. I love questions. It opens up dialogue. Ask your guides. Again, this is not giving power away even to our guides. Like I've been definitely told from the Hathors, Mary Magdalene, guides we can put up on this pedestal, do this, this, and this. And definitely I'll be like, oh, okay. And then sometimes I'm like, whoa. Why? Like what's the point? Because as woo as I am, and I definitely, y'all that know me and have been sitting with me for a while, I get as woo as there is and can go far out to the cosmos as possible. There's a living, breathing skeptic, or not skeptic, but caution person inside me. I think it's my Taurus moon. So asking, oh, what is this about? Okay, why? And engage, empower yourself. Like if you get the hit, do this, this, and this, and it feels right, you're like, yay, let's do it. And it can still feel right. And you'd be like, oh, that's so interesting. What is that? There was this time where I was guided to go out at midnight for 7 days in a row and engage in this song, doing circles around a tree. And I did it, but you better be sure, because I didn't really want to be up at midnight. I was like, do I really have to do it at midnight? Can I do it at 9? It's still dark. And it was like, no, okay, this portal's opening. This is happening. This star is aligned at that time. And I was like, oh, okay, midnight it is. Wear all black. Okay. Do I have to wear all like, oh, no, because this, and this is what's happening. Oh, I'm going to do my laundry. Right? So you can ask sovereignty. Someone said that, sovereignty. So have fun with it. Ritual and ceremony create such magic and such beauty in not only your life but the people around you, and it's an incredible tool to utilize. So I hope this was helpful and insightful, and thank you all for spending the hour with me. That went over. It did not go over, because I'm just going to say it starts at 7:30 and we'll see how long things go. Okay. I love you all. And any questions, comments, just keep them coming, and I will see you next week. Oh, next week is on working with sound to create light, to move energy in our DNA, in our organs, our lymph system, our circulatory system. So we're going to be using sound as a catalyst, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be more experiential. I won't be yapping the whole time. And then also for those who are not signed up, on September 5th, there is a webinar for the Path of the Shamanic Priestess journey, the Golden Serpent. That's going to be a 6-month amazing deep dive. So that is in the notes. Thank you, Sarah Jane. And yeah, I will see you next week. Thank you.